Hello and welcome to this FinGraphs podcast on Dukascopy TV. Today we're going to talk about the dollar and try to understand if its uptrend since the beginning of the year could be coming to an end. We'll start with this analysis with a mosaic, including the main currency pairs. So you have first column the euro, then cable, then dollar yen, then dollar Swiss. And we look at them on a weekly basis, so over the next few quarters, and on a daily basis over the next few months. What we can see is that the uptrends on euro dollar and cable are still heading higher and probably into next year, while dollar yen is probably meeting a resistance soon and could retrace and perhaps resume its downtrend, and while dollar Swiss is still heading lower, probably into next year. So basically, we're still bearish the dollar and bullish the main currency pairs against it into spring next year. Shorter term, if we look at the daily, the consolidation since early this year on the euro is probably reaching or nearing an oversold condition. There's still quite a bit of risk over the next few weeks, but we should be getting there by late August, September. Cable is also retracing and is entering its corrective targets, where it should also find support over the next few weeks. Dollar yen is pushing higher and is trying to retest up with difficulty, and we can see that the trend seems rather exhausted as it has reached its targets and is here under the stress of our envelopes. And dollar Swiss is in a sideways move, which is going nowhere, and we believe it could also resume lower over the next few weeks. Now, if we look at them in detail, we will first look at euro-dollar. And euro-dollar, if you could see, started up last March very strongly, and this move has been consolidating since earlier this year. We do believe that this trend is not over and could lead us up into the high 20s, perhaps the low 30s into next spring. In the meantime, the consolidation that we've seen doesn't seem quite over yet. We are getting towards an oversold condition, but in terms of our envelopes, we don't have any downside stress yet, meaning the envelopes are touching each other, showing an exaggeration, so that's not the case yet. And there's still some downside potential, possibly towards 15, perhaps towards 12, although that seems quite aggressive. In the meantime, the hourly graphs, so the perspective over the next few weeks, are still moving lower and are currently in a resumed downtrend situation, and we believe that there's still some downside potential over the next week to 10 days and initially towards the 116 mark. So basically, we still bullish the euro, but just the consolidation is not quite over yet, and there's still some risk over the next few weeks. We draw a similar conclusion here on cable. Cable is still in an uptrend. It has seen some high-level consolidation since February, but we believe that it could make it up to the high 40s and perhaps the low 50s by next spring. We could look at the daily graph here and this consolidation, which for now hasn't been very deep, and could see further downside pressure here over the next few weeks. We're not quite oversold here, but should find support in this corrective range, which is between 137.80, where we're pretty much at the moment, and could extend down to about 135, where we should find more worthwhile support. In the meantime, we can see that cable has begun to resume lower. It is hitting against the support of hourly corrective targets to the downside, and if we do break below these, which does seem to be the case, this could justify a drop towards the 135 support levels. So still bullish on cable long term, but just the consolidation is still ongoing, and there might be a further leg down towards 135, where we believe we could find support over the next few weeks. Now, looking at dollar yen has seen a very, very strong rebound since earlier this year. It is hitting against a resistance and has been doing so for a few months. And that resistance is slightly above 111. And we believe that the move that we've seen, which was very strong, is probably a corrective move, and that dollar yen could resume lower at some point over the next few months. Indeed, if we look at the daily graph, we can see that our envelopes have been touching each other for quite a few months, meaning that we're getting towards the exhaustion of this trend. Our targets have pretty much been reached, and we can see that our oscillators, our risk index, is resuming lower. So we do believe that we are attempting a retest here, perhaps another few weeks of this retest, but then dollar yen probably reverses down and retraces into the fall. We're not necessarily convinced that we will make new lows here next spring, as the environment remains quite positive in terms of for risk assets in general, and the yen is very risk off, but we do believe that the retracement could lead us back probably between the 107, 105 range. The hourly graph has broken through support and is showing a very aggressive downside projection here. We believe that's premature, as we are approaching an oversold condition here on our risk index. So we would see rather an attempt to bounce back, retest up, and then a move down from early next month into the fall. Finally, we look at Swiss franc, which is still moving lower into next year. The risk index is quite oversold, so we can exclude some kind of a snapback here. But we believe that, as with the other pairs, the time for this snapback is closing. Still an aggressive upside targets here on our daily graph, but basically a dollar Swiss, in our view, has been going nowhere since. So we do believe that, as with the other pairs, we might get a bit of a upside retest here, perhaps up to 0.94. We don't believe we could make it much higher. More likely towards 0.93. And we can see it here. We've probably have reached support of the corrective targets to the downside. We're not quite oversold here, but we think the oscillator might reverse up and that we will see another attempt to retest up over the next few weeks. Thank you very much for your attention, and we wish you a very good week of trading.